Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
How you doing?
Rough week. Today I'm good though.
Rough week. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just give you the super abbreviated version. My dad visited a few days ago, and anyway, like when I lost that $750, there was a lot of people swirling around that kind of like had very useful and supportive things to say. And then my dad notably did not reach out to me, which is fine. I just assumed he was busy. But he comes and stays at my place, and basically he just unloads on me that he's just been pissed the whole time that I did that, and does this huge shame trip on me about like, you know, you fucked up and blah, blah, blah. And
you lost something. We all lose things.
Yeah. Well, hey, and you know, I don't feel great about that. And but I guess, yeah, like it just really and you know, I was able to kind of like keep my side of the street clean. I conceded to him, and I tried to reach out with empathy that like, look, when I was drinking and using, I put you and my mom through a lot. And you know, I understand why this might be bringing some stuff up for you, but
good point. Nice.
But regardless, it was a really bad move. It you know, it didn't help me. Kind of sent me into a little bit of a predicament. And I'm doing okay now. But yeah, as you can imagine, that was just not the most helpful thing to hear from somebody. So,
but for speaking of families and emotional sobriety, this is one of those deals where it's opportunity. It's like you say, it's you know, because it ain't over because you're still processing it. So yeah. So the idea is you said, you know, that hadn't been good, but you go like, okay, how can I use this? How what am I getting? Because there's some good stuff in there. I'm sorry it happened.
Allen Thom back on the podcast. Welcome, guys. How are we feeling this weekend? How's our emotional sobriety?
Oh, you sound like a nurse in the hospital.
How
are we feeling? I love it. The amazing we pronoun.
Yeah.
How do we feel? What do we
on a
need?
scale of stable to nuclear? How's your emotional center of gravity?
Mine's been wobbly, you know, but more like weebles, you know, like what weebles wobble, but they won't fall down. But now this is just one of those examples of how this isn't about this, because doesn't speak to emotional sobriety. It speaks to the fact that I am too conditional in my assessment of myself. I just finished finally figuring out how to solve a problem with a water pump that we've not had water pressure up here at the house for the last 3 days, and I figured it out. I had to crawl around under my house for all that time, many times. Crawl spaces. It's like and so but I figured it out. I got it worked out, and I'm so proud of myself. And so, okay, I'm not emotionally sober. I'm high. I just realized as I'm saying that I'm high on the fact that I did something, and I was just really challenged, and I was really getting pissed off about it, and I figured it out. And so we can talk about that. I'm not putting myself down, but we can make that point. That's not emotional sobriety. That's feeling good because I did something.
I feel that from cleaning a floor sometimes. Just cleaning a floor will give me a little juice to,
come on over here. I want you to crawl around underneath my house and see how you feel about it. It's like,
but Thom, you love animals. You know, I mean, all your friends are down there. I thought
no. If there were any animals under my house, I would not be going under there. The kind of animals I might encounter. I do not love those animals.
Seconded. Well, how you doing, Allen?
Well, I just finished a radio show or a podcast with it's called Sober Speak with John, and God, it just left me very raw and vulnerable right now. Everybody knows I've been going through a divorce and dealing with a lot of pain and grief, and more recently what's coming up, which is kind of relevant to this topic we're going to talk about today, is the effects of all of this on Maddie and Cece. Okay. I've got a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and boy, they are reeling from this whole thing. They are so traumatized. by the divorce, and they feel so much pain. And so, the topic that we have today is really relevant, is in terms of, what happens when there's children in a family and you're going through recovery or not in recovery, and you're going through all the crazy and the chaos and all the stuff that goes with active alcoholism and addiction, or in this case, that goes with a divorce. This stuff is very important, because it's like dropping a rock in the center of a pond. It has so many ripple effects.
Big rock.
Big giant rock, man, that's caused, for us, a tsunami, right? That's just destroyed our family, is what it's done. And so I'll just start talking about that in terms of what Cece and Maddie are experiencing, because I think that will open it up. I mean, and how kids will, we talk all the time about not taking things personally. Kids don't have that opportunity. They're not afforded that luxury as we are, with an adult consciousness, to differentiate, because they're still so undifferentiated from the family and from the connection with mom and dad, right? And so
naturally they're in that state naturally. It's not
pathological. It's just where they are in their developmental stage. So something like this, like a divorce, for them becomes a very personal experience. Why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I being put through this experience? What does it mean about me? What does it mean about life? I mean, and so that's the thing I think for us to be aware of, is that when there's children in a family, especially young children, and you're going through some kind of an ongoing crisis or difficult situation, the impact on the children is incredible. Look, we know that today, from going to ACA meetings, adult children of alcoholics, and we hear what they've experienced and the impact that those experiences had on them. They have that is 17 points on the laundry list. I'm sure you've seen it, Thom. I mean, when you look at that, it's like, my God, the impact on their development and on being able to show up in their life in a certain way has been so compromised by these experiences.
Right.
And so, emotional sobriety, and I'll share a little bit about what's happening with Cece and Maddie I think I'm meeting them in a good way, and you'll comment on it, Thom and Patrick, what you guys think. But it's been terribly difficult. Right now, I have more pain over what they're going through than what I'm going through, to tell you the truth. It's really shifted.
Yeah.
It's really, now my awareness is in terms of what this means for them. And what it means for them is quite traumatic and really earth-shattering for them in so many ways. So
right. life changing is a massive understatement.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that rock in the middle of the lake. You're right.
I was reading Melody Beatty, I think her name is, book Codependency No More this morning. Kind of serendipitous. My sponsor is suggesting I read it to work through some issues I'm having in my relationship. And there's a lot of discussion in the early part of the book about ACA and Al-Anon, and the discussion of the nature of alcoholism or addiction as being like a family illness. And by that meaning, right, that there is a collateral effect, that the one dependency has on everybody else's. And I suppose we can kind of have an emotional sobriety kind of encompass some of the same ideas, right? That when one of us is off kilter or kind of we're running a trip on others with these unenforceable rules and whatnot, that loved ones tend to be kind of thrown into that orbit. And then that becomes something that we must learn to manage. And I'll just offer personally that my parents never divorced, but they have a very dysfunctional relationship, and undoubtedly, I was affected by it growing up and to this day. And but it's also, I don't know, my perspective about who they are and who I should be in relation to them has evolved quite a bit as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, just to kind of set my perspective on this, and Alan, we kind of touched on this the other day when we were talking. It's that, I consider myself absolutely no expert on childhood development or children. But I long ago figured out I could stop saying I don't know anything about childhood development or children, because I think every one of the adults I've ever treated as a therapist have been children, and what we're treating is often, very often, what, at least in part, if not in large part, what happened back then. So it's at the risk of, and then this is to minimize nothing you're saying, but but I want to say this is where that positive opportunism stuff comes in, because you're right there with your kids at these moments where they're having these experiences. I'm thinking about redecision therapy, when they're making these decisions about the world, about, who can be trusted, who cannot be trusted. What about adults? As you've said, you've shared some stuff with me. What does this mean about people? What does this mean about adults? What does this mean about all of that? And you're there, and you're there, my hope, I just want to say this out loud, my hope is that Jess is there also, that for them to basically get some have responses from you guys that can make a difference, that don't send them down the path of reinforcing negative views of themselves, And one of the things I know, I'll just go ahead and say this, because otherwise I'll just be looking for an opportunity to say it, is I know from conversations with you is I love the fact, I hate the fact of what they're going through. I love the fact that Maddie, I don't know about Cece, but Maddie has been able to put some things into words and verbalize them to you that gives you that opportunity to basically know, okay, it's not just a response, but you'll be responding to, what you're responding to. It's like this, and it's like you said, it's natural. It's why do they think it's their fault or part their fault? Because this is their world. A child, I heard Joe Cruz, say many times when I was up at onsite, a childhood should be about the child, and it's a simple statement, but unfortunately not one we get very well, but it's like, and so the childhood is about the child. So like what you said, when something is happening, it's, the idea of just repeating over and over again, oh honey, this isn't about you, that's horrible. It's a horrible response. And anyway, I here's my thing on a personal note. I trust you to be there to tune into them, to listen to them, and respond to them in ways that are going to help them not only survive this, but to grow from it.
Well, I'm hoping so, Thom. I mean, that is my goal here, is to be there for them and to create, when they're with me, as safe as an atmosphere as I can create.
Yep.
And, because of the work I'm doing right now, I'm just realizing how important it is to feel safe. So important to feel safe. And I've never considered that to be as salient and as important as I see it as being now, given the work I've done, in revealing how I've just had a lack of a feeling of safety my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the girls, I can see with Cece and Maddie that they need that so bad at this point in time, because their world has been turned upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And not by their choice, right? They were powerless over this. Somebody else made a decision for them in terms of what was going to happen to their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of things in this that I think we could talk about that are relevant to this emotional sobriety. So one of the ways that I think that this relates to families, and especially families with children, young children, more than adult children, but relevant for adult children as well, is that the heart of parenting that we've come to see, which is, this is where it overlaps completely with emotional sobriety, is being able to help your kids deal with their feelings. See, that's the heart of parenting. And when we look back, you look back at your childhood. Let me look back at mine. Patrick, will ask Patrick to look back at his. How much help did you get dealing with your feelings? Mine was a big fat zero. I mean, I can't tell you one thing other than, quit complaining is quit complaining. What do you have to complain about? There's kids in China that have a lot less than you. I mean,
there you go.
How my feelings were dealt with is dismiss them, So, there are three styles of parenting: the dismissive parent, the disapproving parent, and the parent that says, all right, do whatever you want, the laissez-faire parent. All of those are damaging to a kid's sense of self, to a kid's self-esteem. So this emotional coaching, well, what does it look like? Well, let me share what I shared with you the other day with Maddie. And then now I had it with Cece last night too. So something happened for Maddie, wanted to go spend some time over with Jess. We're now living separately as the divorce is inevitable. And the kids are with me half time with her. This was the night she was supposed to be with Jess, but because of circumstances, she ended up going to spend the night with me, and she was quite disappointed. She wanted to be with her mom. And she got really upset, ran in the bedroom and lay there and was crying. And I went and laid next to her. She goes, I just hate this, Dad. This is tough. I hate it. I can't stand it. And of course, I'm right with her. It is.
You're not disagreeing.
No, yes, it is. It's painful. It's difficult. It's challenging. What's the worst part of it for you? See, that's the important thing. When you're talking to a kid and they're talking about their experience, inquire in terms of what their experience is. So my question was, what's the worst part of this for you? I feel so embarrassed, like there's something wrong with our family that we're going through this, and other families are not divorcing. I don't want to be around anybody. I'm embarrassed. I feel like this reflects badly on who we are. God, how many kids have felt that? And for her to put words on that, so important, right? And of course, I was able to be empathic, right? Because it's very important when you're listening to your child who's in pain. Don't try to convince them that they shouldn't be feeling what they're feeling.
So often our well-intended reassurances are really thinly veiled criticisms. You shouldn't be feeling what you're feeling, or they're minimizations. Oh, it's not really that bad, so you don't feel this. Yeah. And what you just said is exactly it. And this this is whether we're talking to a child or an adult about something that's painful, is you shift right into that curiosity. That curiosity is the primary ingredient in respect. It is what you need when you want to be curious about the child, and that's what you did. I know you've told me this. It's like so that's it's so easy to misstep there, but you didn't. Yeah,
I just stayed with her. I said, I understand. It's terrible. That's a terrible feeling to feel like we're so different and that there's something terribly wrong with us. So I didn't try to make that better. I just stayed with her on. Then she brought up the second thing is that I feel, that I'm having a hard time trusting adults. Well, I get that. Out of the blue, their mother decides that she's going to change the deal here. I want a divorce. I'm not going to consider how anybody else is feeling about this, but we're going to get a divorce. And so all of a sudden her life is turned upside down. Now and I was able to say this to Jess. I says, what's a blessing for me at this point and a curse is I have such a deep understanding of what this is doing to their psyche. And I'm telling you, man, that's hard to live with, the knowledge of trauma and the wound that this creating in her soul and in Cece's soul. And there's no way, it's beyond this idea. Life isn't perfect. No, we were talking about a trauma. We're not talking about just dealing with an imperfection in life, that I'm not living up to this or that. I mean, it's much more than that. And I don't want to minimize that. And we don't want to minimize that if you're talking to our children about it.
Absolutely.
So then the second thing that she said to me that I shared with you, and thank God, or third thing she said,
Mm-hmm.
is I feel like if somehow I was a better kid, you guys wouldn't have gotten divorced.
Wow.
Taking total responsibility for the
Mm-hmm.
thing. Now, part of that is wanting to feel some control over it unconsciously.
Sure.
If I was a better kid, then maybe I could have had an impact on this. But it's also just taking it very personally. My God, this says something about me, that if I was different, you guys wouldn't have done this. So once again, I connected with her feelings, and then I said, honey, what I want you to know is this has a lot to do with mom and dad, nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably figure that out later on in life. So I said that, that's something you'll learn more about it later on. But then the final thing she said, Tom, and I told you when I said this to you, I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so ugly.
Yeah.
Poor thing, man. It breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Just,
I feel so ugly, Daddy. I just feel ugly. So she's internalizing all of it, right?
yeah.
She's introjecting the whole thing.
Right.
And see, that's what I know is happening, and I know what damage that's doing. That's what kills me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where it came from, but just I said, I hear, honey, I hear how bad this is making you feel. I just can I share how I feel about you? She said, yeah, Daddy. And I just touched her nose. I said, your nose is perfect. Your eyebrows are perfect. I think your eyes are perfect. Your little cheeks are perfect. Your hair is perfect. And I just, for 20 minutes, Tom, I just told her everything I thought was perfect about her.
Mm-hmm.
And she melted. She just loved it. She loved hearing. I loved the moment with her. It was so intimate. It was so close. It's so personal. It was remarkable.
It's fascinating in a dark way how early on in our lives we have these aspects of our mind that love to attack us when we're down. There's wounding here, but there's healing here. Wounding is an opportunity for healing. The difference between going years and years and years and years with something that you don't even know you have, because you don't, when that stuff happens, when you get that stuff, it just goes into deep into your unconscious and hangs there until some of us nosy therapists start asking about it. But man, you were there, and that is such a beautiful expression of that, and that's her moment. I'm always telling people we don't get rid of anything, but that means we don't get rid of any good things either. So that thing is so visceral. It's so, it's in your mind, it's in your spirit, it's in your body, and it was even included more than that, but about her body too. Just the idea that your nose and your hair and your eyes, it's like it was not an abstract concept. You gave a detailed description of her perfection to you. I just love that.
What I'm hearing is that there's going to be trauma, there's going to be distress from the things that happen to us in life, but with kind of cooperation and love, you can at least kind of help ensure that we don't tell ourselves a false story about what happened that may then spin us off in a direction that's kind of even more harmful or more, we want to put people in our loved ones into alignment with reality rather than.
But the false, here's what I would say. False story, I'm getting overly analytical, but it's like the false story remains. Whatever she had is there is remain. But what you give, because this is all we can do for people in therapy at the time. We give them an alternative. Because I really learned this more, I think more through NLP, neurolinguistics programming, planning, training than anything else, but it's in lots and lots of work. It's human beings will always take the best option available to us. So that means if we're, when I'm drinking, when I'm being an asshole, doing this other stuff I somehow perceive those as the best options. Now they're not, but it's like that's what I perceive. So the truth is, we need better options. Allen gave her in that moment, gave Maddie in that moment a detailed second option for her, so that those, and see, I think I don't know how it worked. We'd have to ask Dan Siegel the brain stuff to explain that to me, but But I believe those two things go together now. For every time so right along with that negative, that horrible feeling, there is this experience that's there that is healing. And I believe that as human beings, and we take better options when we have them, is that takes, she really can't go to the negative without remembering and feeling the positive.
Yeah.
So I think that part is just it's unfortunate that it's needed, but it's beautiful that it exists.
Yeah.
My God, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like for you. I mean, talk about just a mixture of
yes.
some of the deepest, most touching, warm feelings and some of the greatest pain simultaneously, because that's one of the things that we're always teaching people about. Oh, by the way, that feeling of pain and pleasure and wonderful stuff all at the same time. Yep. That's what being a human is all about.
Yeah, the way I was thinking about it is that I've probably, by being with her in the way I am, she'll be a little less fragmented than she would have been otherwise.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping, is that it's gonna, like you said, I like the way you said it, is giving her an alternative experience to what she's experiencing. What's happening with Cece? So the difference is Maddie's 10, Cece's 5. So her consciousness is very different.
Very different, yeah.
But Cece and I play this game sometimes called Would You Rather? It's a fun little game. Would you rather have a paper cut or a splinter in your finger? Go ahead, Thom. Would you rather?
I like this game. Splinter.
Patrick, would you rather paper cut or splinter?
I'm going to take splinter too. That sounds really nice.
Then I said, would you rather be happy or sad? She goes, Daddy, I'm sad. I'm sad that you and Mom are getting divorced.
She slipped right past the would you rather. Acceptance just takes us to reality. She went right to reality.
The other day, she comes home after spending time with her mom, and she says, you know what, Dad? I think you guys are both better when you're together. Isn't that an interesting observation?
That's that. Yes, that just brings up all kinds of curiosity in me. Yeah.
The way you work together, you're not as stressed. I'm sure she's saying all of that stuff, which is true.
Yeah.
When you got two parents raising kids, it's different than one. I don't care how good it is that, my hands are full at 72 with a 5 and a 10-year-old. Trying to get food prepared for them, get them in the bath, get their teeth brushed, clothes on, ready for the next day. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff.
It's an observation that is fascinating to me that a 5-year-old would have, but it also leans into her expression of what she wants.
So then she's taking a bath last night, and she's in the bath. She says, Dad, I'm feeling really, really sad about you guys being so separated. He goes, it's like you're over in China and Mom's over here, part of the world, and we're somehow in between. That's what she said. She says, but could you do me a favor, Dad? I said, well, what is that, honey? Could you tell Mom how sad I am? I go, how come you want me to tell Mom how sad you are? She doesn't listen to me when I tell her I'm sad. Well, there she is. Did you find your pencil? Where was it? Oh, is that the one that you had? We were just talking about you on the podcast. You want to say hi to Thom? And this is Cece.
Hey, Cece.
And I told her, look, I'll help you talk to your mom about it. But when we're in the car and her mom called this morning, she said, Dad, let's tell Mom about when I was in the bath last night. Go ahead. And she says, Mom, I just want you to know I was sad. And Mom listened to you, didn't she, that time?
That's right.
So that was really, you took good care of yourself there, didn't you?
Yeah, because sometimes we just need to be reminded of stuff like that.
She said, I already hear you.
Oh, I already hear me. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, how can you not hear me? I'm loud.
I appreciate your loudness.
So that's what's going on. So look, this whole thing about family and emotional sobriety is as the parent, it's our job to try to help our kids learn how to deal with these feelings. And we do that by not dismissing them, not disapproving of them, not avoiding them. And this means being able to sit with our own discomfort too, right? And the pain that it brings up for us. sitting there and being able to go ahead and experience that and endure the pain, because it's going to be valuable, right, for their development. Look at who's coming in the screen.
Who? Yeah.
Who is that?
Batman.
Who?
Batman.
Spider-Man. That's right. So, listen, so those of you that are listening to this, which was fun having Cece join us right at that time, it's a
Special guest on the podcast. Yeah.
special podcast guest. It's about, being there for our kids and being able to listen to them and not feeling like we have to fix it by just being there with them, that there's a big impact by just being present, by connecting, and then what we say, you can redirect after you connect. That's when I could tell Maddie how perfect she is. That's when I could reassure her. Yours has nothing to do with her and whether she's good.
Well, and I also just want to say too that you connect with empathy, you connect with understanding, and just teaching people to put their defenses down and understand that, that basically understanding somebody does not mean, I'm always telling couples, understanding and acknowledging that you understand somebody, what they're saying and what they're describing as their feelings does not mean you agree with them. It just means you understand. And it's like, and when you go all the way back to these kids, it's like, this is at the original level. This is pure. It's like you're not dealing with defenses. They have access to you, your kids have access to you, you have access to them when you're in those communications.
And I could say for myself, the urge is strong at this point in time, still in these conflicts I have with others, to fast forward, to not stay with it, to get past like the real nuts and bolts of how we figure this stuff out, which requires a lot of pain and challenge, to just get, I always fantasize about the point after the learning takes place, but there's no way around it. There's no way out but through.
I always want people to know, just because you're still learning, that it doesn't mean, it's a good thing. It doesn't mean you haven't learned, because that's what you get a lot of people go, oh, when am I ever going to learn? It's like one of my earlier nutshells was the answer to the question, when am I going to learn, is always. I've recently reread via listening on Audible to a book that is a beautiful book about communication that anybody has any interest in communication should read. Is Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. It is God. This man is amazing. And the Audible book is him. He does the reading of it. So I love his voice. He talks about going to the empathy, hearing the feelings, and then listening for the need beneath the feeling.
All right. Until next time.
It was fun. I'm glad Cece was here.
This will be fun to edit this one.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be good. And I'm gonna make sure she stays in, because we all love Cece. Cece Squad.
Podcast.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Tend your life, tend your myth, cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.